Welcome to this Earnestly podcast. I'm your host, Ernest E.J. Christian, coming to you on a late Wednesday night. I'm actually really looking forward to recording this episode today. And I'm always excited to record an episode when it comes to this podcast. This is of course, my baby. And I love what I do, of course. But today's show especially, I'm really looking forward to getting it in. First show in about, I think, 5 days since I recorded. A lot of things going on. Like, you'd think at this point of the year that it would be, like, yeah, the playoffs going on, but you think it'd be a little bit less hectic. But with everything, there's a lot of things going on in pop culture, a lot of things going on in the NBA basketball, obviously the hockey playoffs are, Stanley Cup's about to start soon. A lot of stuff going on. A lot. I'm going to get into it. And another thing that's going on, too, is a lot of things going on in wrestling. We're going to have on my friend James Nies, Big Jim, known as Big Jim, and he's the host of the Three Count Thursday podcast, as well as the Hulla podcast. Great dude. Great big wrestling fan too. We're going to talk about the AEW debut this weekend. That starts in Vegas. Their first pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, that launches this weekend. I cannot wait for that. They're going to draw me in probably, most likely, and also the WWE and what they're going to do in response and their business model and all that. So we'll get into that in a second. I did announce a couple weeks ago on this podcast about the what I'm doing in terms of like ventures. I did say I can't remember the episode that said this though, but that this summer I'll be dropping 2 new podcasts on this quote unquote network. Actually, it's funny. I don't actually have a network I'm promoting actually, but the way things are going in now, I may have to start doing that because I have, I do have multiple podcasts. I have this show. I do the Periscope, Filter podcast, which is actually a Periscope show that is available, through iTunes as well too for audio. Although I've been really slacking on that, be honest, in the last couple of weeks. We have, of course, Mike the Squid, who does the Sports Tank, which has been less and less lately, but he'll be on this new venture I'm doing with the wrestling show. I'm starting a wrestling show with Mike Squid, like I said, and his friend, my friend as well too, Joe Lopez. We're doing our own wrestling podcast, titled This Month of Wrestling, which is basically a show recapping events of the yesteryear. We actually did our first episode today, but it will not drop until, next week. We actually reviewed King of the Ring 1996. Of course, King of the Ring 1996 is also the launch pad for what would become Stone Cold Steve Austin in his legendary career, where he had his infamous or famous, whatever side you stand on the argument, his speech, his Austin 316 speech after beating Jake Roberts in the King of the Ring tournament that year. So that's what's going on this end in terms of the podcast. I'm launching that show next week. Again, the name of the show is This Month of Wrestling. It's actually available already on iTunes now. You can download. But that episode again will drop next week. The other show, of course, I'm actually more excited about because this is actually more personal. After years of convincing and arm pulling and tugging and whatnot, my wife and I are going to do our own podcast, which we'll be naming very soon. And that will be probably dropping sometime in mid-late June. We're still working on some particulars in terms of schedules, in terms of artwork for the show, and a lot of things that we got to work on first before we really dive into it. But that show will be dropping sometime in June, probably most likely late June, because I did tell her I'm gonna wait after the finals till we start actually really diving in. Because technically because my schedule actually starts to soften up a lot more in the summertime. As you guys listen to this podcast for years, you know that this show tends to, I tend to take like a couple weeks hiatus sometimes, like in mid-July or whatever. Not sure that this year necessarily, but that is something that will come up. I'm sure at least I'll have some time to dedicate to the other projects I want to do going forward. But the show my wife Lauren will be dropping again sometime in late June. I'll say earliest mid-June, latest late June. And look, June's around the corner, so it's not like it's a long time away. So looking forward to that project as well as we venture off with that. Now, obviously, we talk a lot of sports in this podcast, but I want to start here first because I don't think we'll be able to do a Thrones talk this week. I'm not sure. We were trying to do one tonight with D. Will, Darryl Wilson, but he has a lot of other obligations right now going on. And I'm not sure if we'll be able to discuss this week. Maybe next week or week after. We'll see how that works out. But I don't want to do an entire show on Game of Thrones and the finale of the series, the great HBO series that everybody is now all of a sudden hating the ending, hating the entire season. And I get it. I totally get it. There's some things in there that does not make sense. I'm totally with you. I totally get it. But everybody's qualms with Game of Thrones. And I come back to this in the end. You know, watching a TV show is optional. You don't have to watch a TV show. Like, if you don't like the TV show, you're more than happy to stop watching and find something else to do. Again, the Game of Thrones story is not yours to tell. It's the writers to tell. It's yours to listen and watch and enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, that's on you. I'm not saying I necessarily love the ending. I understood the ending. Spoilers here, real quick. Bran gets the throne, quote unquote, although really there is no throne to get because the throne was destroyed after Jon Snow killed Daenerys. You know, in the earlier in the episode. And the dragon, of course, responded by burning down the throne. So there really was no throne in the end. And again, I get people's qualms with Game of Thrones and what was done in the show. I get it, but again, it's not your story to tell. And there's a lot of narcissism when it comes to that too. When people get pissed off and start doing these change.org petitions on, you know, redoing the writing. First off, for the 500,000 people that signed the petitions, demanding that the writers rewrite and redo the season. Do all 500,000 people actually agree with the ending in terms of what ending should actually be done? Because I guarantee you, nobody there, I guarantee you everybody there have different ideas of how the ending should be. Some might think Jon Snow should be on the throne. Some say Daenerys. Some say Cersei. Some say Tyrion and Sansa. I don't know. So the very fact that you're not even going to get agreement anyway, even the folks that hate the ending are still petitioning to change the ending, you guys won't agree on the ending anyway. So, you know, it is what it is. Okay? One of the things I've realized in watching TV through the years, especially in the last decade or so, is that no matter how good a show is, landing the plane, and I always say landing the plane because that's always the example I use to describe, you know, ending the show safely, you know, in a way everybody is satisfied with the ending. Landing the plane, I always use as the description. It's hard. It's tough because you get a show as big as Game of Thrones, you know, and it draws a wide base. You're going to get many people who differ on the direction of the show, the ending of the show, and whatnot. You know, that's the risk you take when you have a show as big as Game of Thrones. No matter how popular a show is, I'm a huge fan of Dexter. Dexter is one of the best shows I've ever watched. The first 4 seasons can arguably be placed against any show in the history of television. But the ending of Dexter was terrible, in my opinion. Horrible. Probably the worst ending in the history of television. How I Met Your Mother, loved one of the better sitcoms in the last decade, 2 decades. Their ending was horrible. Okay? Now, to be fair to How I Met Your Mother, they actually created an alternate ending, so people will be satisfied to some degree. The Sopranos. The Sopranos is actually arguably the greatest and most popular television show in the history of television. And yet, their ending gets panned left and right. You know, there's a lot of shows that have great cultural impact, and yet their ending gets destroyed no matter what. It gets destroyed. So, again, Game of Thrones, not your story to tell. This season, did I enjoy it? You know what's funny? I did enjoy it for one reason. I just enjoyed the process because this is the last season. Did everything make sense to me? No. Like, obviously, Jaime and Cersei's, how they died, didn't necessarily agree with that, the way that happened. Did I want Bran the Broken to win the throne or become king? No. I would prefer Jon got it. I actually, to be honest with you, and you're going to think I'm crazy for saying this, but even up to the point where she almost died, when she died, I was kind of rooting for Daenerys. You know, to be honest with you. Because I was already at that point, even though she made the heel turn in the last episode, I was already so I was already so attached to that character that it was hard to just let go of that. And maybe she had some good ideas. Maybe she could, break the wheel, she says, which obviously she couldn't, because she just wanted to do this pretty much the same thing that her predecessors did. Breaking the wheel really meant a democracy. And that was the point of the entire show, was, presenting democracy. Bran was voted in as a leader, not gotten there through inheritance. That was the point of the show. So, again, look, you're allowed to have differences in the show. You're allowed. There's no problem with that. But again, it's not your story to tell. So you get mad all you want, but it doesn't matter at this point. The writers made the money, and that's it. I wish people just get over it. Sign petitions about things that they can't control. Who cares? Anyway, some basketball talk real quick. The Warriors, and they're back in the finals for the 5th straight year, trying to go for the 4th finals in 5 years. And by the way, they swept the Blazers in this conference finals, all without Kevin Durant. Which now poses the question. Which poses the question now: are they better without Kevin Durant? The answer is no. They're not better without Kevin Durant. I've been tweeting this for the last couple weeks now. They're not better without Durant, but they're a lot more fun to watch. That is not even a conversation. That ball moves much more crisp without Kevin Durant on the court. And to be fair to Kevin Durant here too, I don't want to knock him, because he has his own issues going on with Chris Broussard on Twitter and all that. Twitter beef going on with Chris Broussard. Crazy shit, by the way. But it's kind of, I'm sort of getting back to that mode where I was in 2014, 2015, where in 2016 as well, where before they got Durant, the team we all fell in love with, that was moving the ball great, and Steph and Clay and Draymond, and the organic approach of how they play basketball, it actually, you can feel that now. These last 5 and 1/4 games now. Remember, Durant got hurt in Game 5 and late in the 3rd quarter, and then they've actually won every game since then without Durant. And again, I'm not saying they're better without Durant, but there was something to be said about the organic nature of the Warriors without Kevin Durant. Now, look, I still have questions whether they'll beat Milwaukee or Toronto without Kevin Durant. I think they beat Toronto most likely, although this series with Toronto and Milwaukee is definitely, now tied at 2. I mean, we'll see how Game 5 goes. I still like Milwaukee win the series overall. I had them in 6 anyway, although I did think they'd win Game 4. I thought they would have won Game 4 after the way Game 3 played out. But let's assume that they play the Warriors for the Bucks. I do think that the Bucks, without Durant, the Bucks have a really good shot of winning that series. With Durant, though, I think no shot. I think Durant still, poses matchup problems, poses another threat that they have to worry about. But again, to me, the Warriors, to me, they are a lot more fun to watch without Durant. And I'll be honest with you, I'm hoping Kevin Durant leaves, because I want to see this team again, without Kevin Durant, actually play, from an 82-game season and into the playoffs next year. That's what I want, and I'm not trying to be a hater. This is what I want. I always said I prefer this team without Durant, so that's just that. As for the conference finals in the Eastern Conference, and where that's going, tied at 2. I mean, you would have thought after Game 2, and even after Game 3 when they lost, you would have thought, okay, well, Milwaukee, they had a bad game. Giannis didn't play great in Game 3, but it took double overtime to beat them. And Toronto had a home court in that game also too, and they took overtime to beat them. See, if my thought process was, Game 4, they'll win Game 4, and then they'll close the series on Game 5. And not so fast. Not so fast. Toronto came out and bludgeoned them pretty much from start to finish. And look, I still, if you ask me right now in a vacuum, who wins this series still? I still think Milwaukee wins this series. But I do think that some of the little wards that we may overlook throughout the year because of his MVP campaign and everything else. And this is not to say Giannis is not great, because Giannis is still developing, which is scary as hell, because he's developing while still being a top 5 player in the league right now. Free throw shooting, for example, he's had a couple air balls, a couple of these games. Some of the perimeter issues. It's starting to show a little bit now. And again, I still think they'll win Game 5. But if it was Game 5, all bets are off at that point. But this is a great series. It's been a really good series, and we have one of the 2 series doing well, because obviously Portland and Golden State ending pretty quickly in a sweep. we at least have one series that's going to go at least 6 games. Because I mean, can you imagine if Game 5 is tomorrow and it closes out, we have a whole week out of basketball? I mean, the NBA doesn't want that, The more the merrier, So this is a fascinating series. Again, I like Milwaukee. My original pick was 6 anyway, so I think they'll win Game 5, and then I think they'll close out in 6 in Toronto. But of course, that can change. We'll see. Stay in the NBA, of course, and more so off the court, because the Lakers drama, it's funny, Lakers not in the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs in 6 years, and yet they are still the talk. I mean, at least one of the biggest stories in the league outside of the playoffs. Magic Johnson was on ESPN First Take this week, and he pretty much dimed out the Lakers. Most notably, Rob Pelinka, who worked under Magic. Magic was the president of operations. Rob Pelinka worked under him. I can't remember his title necessarily, but Rob Pelinka was also, before getting hired by the Lakers last year, he was the agent for Kobe Bryant. And we've all speculated about why Magic quit on the fly the way he did before the season ended. And he obviously got criticized for that on this podcast, got criticized for that on other shows out there. And we speculated that him and Pelinka did not get along. He didn't really say it as such at the time, but he did this time on First Take, ESPN First Take earlier in the week, and he just spilled the beans on things with what happened with the Lakers. Here's his piece of what he said about why things were bad and why he left the Lakers.
And then I start hearing, Magic, you're not working hard enough. Magic's not in the office. So people around the Laker office was telling me, Rob was saying things. And
Rob Pelinka.
And I didn't like those things being said behind my back, that I wasn't in the office enough and so on and on. So I started getting calls from my friends outside of basketball saying those things now were said to them outside of basketball. Now, not just in the Laker office anymore. Now it's in the media and so on.
And these are people you trust.
Exactly. And people got to remember something. Being in this business for over 40 years, I got allies, I got friends everywhere, right? And so then when those things start happening too much, Stephen A., the straw that broke the camel's back was I wanted to fire Luke Walton. I showed her the things he did well and the things he didn't do well. And I said, listen, we got to get a better coach. I like him. He's great. Former Laker, the whole thing. So the first day, well, let's think about it. Second day, okay, you can fire him. Then the next day, no, we should try to work it out. Now I got Tim involved. And I said, it's time for me to go. I got things happening that was being said behind my back. I don't have the power that I thought I had to make the decisions. And I told them, when it's not fun for me, when I think that I don't have the decision-making power that I thought I had, then I got to step aside.
Now, one thing I will say about Magic Johnson here, honestly, I'm trying to not to sound like a honk, because he is my favorite athlete of all time. He is really my favorite athlete of all time. I love how honest he is to a fault. I love how transparent he is to a fault. Like, I do really enjoy that. Like, he's actually that honest and that open about how things went. Now, do I agree with the way he did this? It's kind of, I won't say it's classless, because, again, you do what you want to do. But, I mean, this incident does hurt the Lakers in terms of free agency, because, if Kawhi Leonard, for example, which I don't think he'll go there, but Kawhi Leonard or Jimmy Butler or any other notable free agents may want to consider going to LA, they see this dysfunction, especially with Magic Johnson and his history, and given who he is in the echelon of NBA greats and whatnot. They see this kind of dysfunction come out of LA with LeBron, and that's not even including with LeBron James, who obviously, at this point it's not the easiest route to go to want to play with him anyway, especially at age 35. But to see all this going on, and to see Magic just go on TV and to spill the beans like he did, that actually hurts the Lakers' credibility. And to be honest with you, the person that falls here more than anybody else is not Rob Pelinka. It's not Magic Johnson. It's not LeBron James. It's Jeannie Buss. And it goes back to when Jeannie took over with Magic about a couple years ago. I think it was 2016 it happened. And look, I wasn't somebody that was actually going to bat for Jim Buss at the time, because Jim Buss has the issues also too. I called him on my old radio show, on this podcast, and numerous places. that he wasn't doing a good job. But I also put a caveat whenever I critique Jim Buss and the rumors about Jeanie taking over the Lakers. There was always a caveat where, okay, cool, but even though I believe Jim isn't the guy for the job, what can Jeanie do different that Jim isn't doing or hasn't done? And that was always a question I always asked. And no one can ever answer that question. To be honest with you, 3 years in, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'm not saying Jim was any good. And Jim did some good things probably earlier on in his career. Of course, his dad was alive at the time too, and it was a well-oiled machine. And obviously, you have Kobe Bryant was still in his prime and all that. So it's hard to really screw up, when you have all those things coming, in place for you. But I always said that, even though Jim had operated in a way that I thought was not good for the franchise, I also said, what could Jeanie do different? And to be honest with you, through 3 years, and look, this can change in the next year or two. Maybe she proves herself to be a better executive going forward. But Jeanie right now looks worse than Jim. I have to say that. She looks worse than Jim. And that's with having LeBron James on the roster. The very fact that she can't put this situation in order, the fact that you have this going on and Magic going to TV to say what he's saying, and the fact that, let's face it, I believe that she is, this is just the optics, that she favors having Laker greats and bringing in Laker greats to fix the problems, to the family aspect. And I get all, wanting to pay back people that were helpful in pushing the Laker brand to what it is today. Today is so great, but it's still the biggest brand in basketball. She has not hired executives that are, brick and mortar NBA guys. And I think this all falls on her. That she's so infatuated with, bringing in Magic and Pelinka, guys who have connections to the team, Byron Scott and all that I think that because, and by the way, it wasn't Byron Scott, because Byron Scott was actually Jim Buss's hire. But I think she's so obsessed and so locked into wanting to take care of her own and her family that it's hurting the product. So all this really, you can blame Magic, you can blame Pelinka, you can blame LeBron, LeBron's people and all that, but all of this right here is on Jeanie Buss. Again, what can she bring to the table different from Jim Buss? And again, I'm not capable of Jim Buss, because I was one of those back 5 years ago that was saying Jim Buss, at this point may not be suitable for his job anymore. But I was also one of those that said, what can Jeanie do different? And you're seeing right now that Jeanie is as bad, if not worse, than Jim Buss. So this drama continues to play out, man. And it's fascinating. The Lakers always find a way to stay in the news lately for the wrong reasons. And I gotta tell you, this team still has cap room. They still have space to sign another free agent. But I don't know if that's going to happen this time around. I don't know, because this situation looks unattractive. Like, if I'm Klay Thompson, do I want to come here? Like, if I'm Kawhi Leonard, and I'm considering the Lakers, do I want to come here to this mess? No, I wouldn't want to come into this mess. And the fact that Magic's out there diming you out on ESPN First Take without a care in the world, that's a bad look, man. Anyway, time to talk wrestling with our old friend Big Jim Nies. We're going to talk about AEW, the launch, as well as the future of the WWE. Here we go. All right, joining us today on the podcast, of course, he is a host of 3 Count Thursday, wrestling podcast, as well as the Hull Up podcast, which actually is on Wednesdays, right, Jim?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Follow him on Twitter, of course, at Big Jim Sports. It's funny, I wish this guy's been on the show before, but it's been a long time. And it's funny. I wish I had him on the show a lot more, but hopefully we can make this a more of a routine going forward, man. Big Jim, what's up, man?
Doing good, man. Yeah, definitely hope to do this a little more often. And Huddle Up's kind of in like this hiatus right now. Like, once we get through football season and things kind of, get off kilter, and my podcasting partner and I have both had some pretty crazy months, like, in our personal lives. So I'm kind of doing these like check-in things right now where I'll just pop up a 10-minute thoughts about the Stanley Cup Finals or whatever. But we'll definitely be back in the fall, and 3 Count Thursday every Thursday night.
Sorry about the Caps from 1. They couldn't repeat this year, but
It's tough, but my dad has been a Blues fan since day one. They haven't made it to the finals since he was 13. They've never won a cup. So like, if my Caps can't do it, like I'm all on board. I'm playing Gloria every freaking day, so I'm all on board with what the Blues are doing right now.
Right. Now, I was discussing earlier that, like, you haven't been on the show much, and I think last time I spoke to you on this podcast, maybe about 3 years ago, and it's because I don't watch a lot of wrestling. I don't watch wrestling currently. I'm a diehard fan when it comes to the Attitude Era, Hulkamania, the new Next Generation, all that, but I gotta tell you, you have this thing now, the AEW, the All Elite Wrestling, the new company coming out this coming weekend. And I gotta tell you, if there's something that may actually pull me back into watching wrestling again, I think this AEW venture might actually be the thing that actually pulls me back to watching current day wrestling. Share your thoughts on AEW and everything else as they come into the fold this coming weekend.
Yeah, I think the business is in a really interesting time because the internet has been a fantastic tool for not only for the WWE and their network, but for like independent wrestling as a whole. You've been able to access things that as wrestling fans you've never been able to access before. Like you can get so much content out of Japan and the UK and Australia and all over the world, and that's kind of created this groundswell. And you've had Ring of Honor come on stronger. You've had New Japan, and they've had such a great partnership. And then, Cody and the Young Bucks kind of, they say, we're going to do this show. And it was last year and it was all in. And from there, you started to hear these little, buzz things like, are they starting their own company or, what exactly is going to happen? And when, AEW was announced, and Jericho comes out and Pac comes out and there's all these fairly heavy hitters in independent wrestling. And then obviously with Chris Jericho, in the entire world. He hasn't wrestled with a company outside the WWE in 2 decades. So, I think this is a huge opportunity to grab some people like yourself, like that have not, been full-time watchers and probably since the Monday Night Wars. And it's come out in the last, couple of weeks that AEW is going to be on TNT in the fall and it kind of gets this nostalgia of here we go. Is this, 20 years ago all over again? And I don't think it gets to that level, at least not immediately, but you have a great roster. You have a great, match card for this Saturday night. Mm-hmm. And, it's a tremendous opportunity for an upstart company who is treating itself that like they are in the game. They're not pulling any punches. I know earlier, in the Road to Double or Nothing video, their chief brandy officer, Brandy Rhodes, came out and said, direct quote, I feel like if you're not satisfied at the end of Double or Nothing, you're not a wrestling fan. So they are not, they're not, dipping their toes in the water. They're diving right into the middle of the ocean and they're going for it. And if nothing else, man, I gotta have tons of respect for a company that comes out like that.
And you'll be watching, of course, right? Like you're pretty, I won't say plugged in, but you're pretty intrigued, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We were up 4 out of the 5 of us at 3 Count Thursday. Went to an NXT show about 2 hours from where we're based in Bethlehem, PA, last Thursday night, and we were already starting to make plans of who's going to actually host the watch party this Saturday night. So yeah, we're all in for it. Like we watched All In. We watch at least the big New Japan shows and Ring of Honor shows throughout the year. And yeah, we're on board for this because for people like us that are every week WWE watchers, for better, for worse, or for indifferent, this is just something we love. We go to independent shows as much as we can. We work for independent companies in central Pennsylvania. Like, there was no way that a company like this is going to start up and we're not going to be tuned in and covering it.
Right. Are there any notable names that are involved in this thing? I mentioned Chris Jericho, for example, but are there any other notable names that are either on the roster or at least involved in the company in terms of promoting it, whatever it be? What names are out there that we may know of?
Yeah, for people that like are tuned in or paying attention, you're probably at least somewhat aware of who the Young Bucks are, but the ones that are really going to grab you from like a WWE fan standpoint, Cody Rhodes, Obviously the son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. He's going to be taking on his brother Dustin, formerly known as Goldust, in a match that, we saw in the WWE a few years ago. The feud didn't kind of live up to its expectations. Goldust has just kind of been doing nothing for a while. He's finally been released from the WWE, so it's Cody versus Dustin. Billy Gunn, Kip Sop is a trainer, and I'm sure he's going to be working through the show. Some last names that are going to kind of grab people. Brian Pillman Jr., the son of the late Flying Brian Pillman. He's on the card this week.
Oh wow!
That guy is spectacular. He might even be better than his dad. He's still kind of raw at this point, but he's very, very talented. Glacier from WCW is going to be in a battle royal this Saturday. Sean Spears, formerly known as Ty Dillinger for the recent WWE/NXT fans, he just announced that he's going to be on the card today. So there are some ex-WWEers. Probably, again, the big one is Cody and Dustin Rhodes and Chris Jericho. But AEW, and this is what I will give them credit for, is a lot of people are like, oh, they're trying to put WWE out of business. They're trying to be competition, and the thing they say is they're not trying to be that. They're just trying to be themselves, and whatever happens. Not to make too many bold predictions for what may or may not happen on Saturday, but the big question mark is there's a 21-man battle royal that is taking place, and as of right now, there are 4 names who have not been announced yet, and I would be very surprised if John Moxley, aka Dean Ambrose, is not one of those names.
Yeah. Speaking of names, well, first of all, I know Jim Ross would be involved in this as well too. Is he doing any commentary on anything on that, or just behind the scenes, whatnot?
Yeah, no, he's their senior talent advisor, so he's going to kind of be doing what he used to do, like talent scouting and things like that. But he will also be on commentary for him.
Very cool.
When you're talking Jim Ross, I mean, he's the guy that called probably most of our wrestling memories. For people kind of in our age group, all of those big moments were Jim Ross. So it's awesome to have JR on the call anytime.
It's a big step to have too, to have that voice that could connect, guys like me, guys like you, and others that may want to come back into the fold. That's definitely a good way to go, bringing a guy like JR, who still, by the way, has a big following here today. I mean, his new podcast now he's done with Conrad Thompson is already getting some rave reviews now.
Yeah, I think it was number 6 on the iTunes chart, and the one that drops tomorrow.
Oh my gosh!
Thursday, whenever this episode airs, but is about the night Owen Hart died.
Yeah.
So if you've never listened to a Jim Ross podcast and you have ever cared about wrestling or the Hart family or anything connected to it, tomorrow is going to be the episode to listen to.
Oh, absolutely. I know CM Punk hasn't been involved in wrestling since 2014. Any chance AEW and CM Punk marriage can actually pan out? You see that happening?
This is how I'll put it. If CM Punk is going to end up anywhere in the wrestling business, I think AEW is where he ends up. Now, whether or not it's this weekend at Double or Nothing, whether or not it's in the show in July in Jacksonville, whether it's at the rumored All In 2 coming up Labor Day weekend, or if it's Lex Luger in the aisleway at the Mall of America style for episode 1 of AEW TV whenever it debuts this fall. And if I had to venture a guess, it would probably be the first episode of their TV, because I don't think it's going to be announced. I don't think they're ever going to say CM Punk is All In or All Elite or whatever. I think it's going to be this moment where he is in the middle of their ring, or he is on their ramp, and maybe he's dropping a pipe bomb. Who knows? But I think it's going to be generating a social media buzz and getting people to tune into that TV program. It just really all depends on him. I mean, I think can pretty much put the lid on his MMA career. I think it's time for him to realize that if he's going to do anything, it's in the pro wrestling business. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's a pro wrestler. He always was a pro wrestler. So I was never the biggest Punk guy. I kind of fell out of wrestling for a little while in college. And that was kind of when Punk really hit his stride.
Oh wow! Okay.
But but I'm all in favor of him coming back because it's all about creating buzz. The more buzz AEW can get, and I think the more help it'll give to the WWE and other companies as well. So I'm all on board.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then, because obviously you're plugged in with wrestling in general. Look, there's no way they're ever gonna take over WWE. WWE is like ESPN. It's a big stamp. It's that big mountain that look, they've owned this territory for God knows how long, 30, 40 years now. However, can AEW at least put some sweat on the collar for Vince and others?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely think so. And I think it has plenty to do with the fact that the internet is a powerful tool, whether it's just generating buzz for somebody, or if it's, kind of making noise as a collective group of people. And because we've seen it in the WWE. I mean, here's the thing. Kofi Kingston is a WWE champion. Daniel Bryan, ended up main eventing WrestleMania 30. I don't think those things and other things in the past, 5 or 6 years happen without a reasonable amount of social media and internet buzz. So if nothing else, just the buzz of this company and the people that are involved, and I think a wrestling community's drive and fire for competition will absolutely make this sustainable. I think this thing lasts as long as the Khan family wants to pay for it, and as long as Cody and the Young Bucks are happy and things like that. And I don't see any reason why that it doesn't at least. I think they're already on the WWE's radar. I don't think the WWE is scared. I actually think, I actually think the WWE is happy about this, because the best time in WWE's company history came when WCW got big. So I think there's, whether they will ever admit it or not, and they probably never will, but I think the WWE and the movers and the shakers there are going, finally, we have somebody that's making noise against us.
It's not to say we haven't had any other competitors in the past, in the last 20 years. We had TNA, which really didn't really do much. I mean, we had other companies that's tried their best to counter what WWE had, but was never successful. But it does feel like, and look, I haven't watched wrestling in its current form since 2002, since Icon vs. Icon. Right after Hogan Rock met, pretty much after that, I stopped watching, just for a lot of reasons. Not just because I didn't like it, just because I just life happens. You know what I mean? But it does feel like, based on everything, all the chatter, because I still talk to you, I talk to a lot of people who still watch currently, and people who respect the business, that are honest about their take on it. That the WWE and Vince McMahon has kind of rested on the laurels last 20 years, and I think now this is something that can actually start it can spark, a lot of the interest against, it can spark, creative again. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting away from wrestling as a whole, that AEW might provide here for WWE. Yeah,
I think the WWE is, and like you said, I don't think they're going to go as long as they want to. There's no real danger of them like shutting down or anything like that. But I think what is happening right now, especially since kind of the rise of New Japan in North America, and now with AEW coming on, is because for the last, since WWE bought out WCW, there hasn't really been a strong competitor. Yeah, you've had Ring of Honor. Yeah, you've had TNA. But WWE has known that they're the game in town. You can go to independent shows and all of that's cute and fun and we love it, but WWE is the place to go. And now you're really getting a solid competitor. Again, that's not going to put you out of business, and at least not in the short term or anything like that. But it's somebody that is officially on the radar. So, and what's happening is you're seeing this collective buzz among fans, like on the internet and stuff, that are saying, the product's no good and this and that. And don't get me wrong, the product is not the best it's ever been by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the easy thing to do is bash the product. And I think that's what a lot of fans do, is they just automatically go to negative. Like, I mean, even this past week, you know, when the 24/7 title, which is basically kind of a reinvention of the hardcore title where it can be defended anytime, anywhere, as long as there's a referee.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because what are your thoughts on that title that was revealed this week by Mick Foley?
The title looks, the belt itself, the physical championship looks horrendous.
I agree.
But the concept is great. The potential is out of this world, and it's, especially with the WWE Network, especially with social media, there's so much you can do with it. Like,
yeah.
It really makes you, you know, whether you're on your phone, whether you're on your iPad, whether you're on your computer, it makes you kind of, if they do it correctly, keep a screen open, because at any point they could break into their, you know, their scheduled programming with, you know, we're going to, you know, a cafe in Central Park where, you know, R-Truth was, grabbing a coffee and we're about to have a match. So it's stuff like that I think if they do it correctly, you know, is exciting, but people just want to crap on the title. And again, it does. I think it's the ugliest title that WWE's ever done, and I know that's a bold claim, but the concept is great. So the thing I've always tried to do, and I get flack for it on my show, people call me, you know, a WWE shill or butt kisser or whatever, but I try to find the positive in the moment. Like, yeah, there's bad moments or whatever, but there's also some really good stuff there too if you actually kind of analyze it and don't go to the negative right away. So, but again, I think the competition is going to drive, you know, the WWE's writing teams and creative teams and all of that. So I'm really looking forward. Like, this weekend is great, and July is great when AEW runs another show. But the time I'm really looking forward to is September or October, whenever that TV show launches, because I think that's truly when the game changes. I don't, you know, another company running a pay-per-view doesn't change the wrestling business.
I agree.
Another company having television programming on cable, whether it's the same night as WWE or not, because they haven't announced the date, that's what's really going to change things.
Right. And by the way, you mentioned the 24/7 belt. Like like I said, I don't watch current wrestling, but I do have WWE on my Instagram, and I watched some of the changes on the IG stories. I mean, it's really, really creative if you think about it. Like initially I wanted to hate it, but I'm like, I can't really hate it because it's actually doing the thing that they're kind of sort of starting to draw me in a little bit now. Like, I'm looking at the feed and you're seeing some title changes and some things happening here, and it at least gives the social media aspect something to look at.
Sure. Sure, absolutely.
So it did work on me, by the way, for the record.
Let's see, that's exactly, and more stuff like that. If they use their social media as a way to draw viewership in, because I know right now, like, everybody is so focused on TV ratings. So that was the big thing back in the day. Is, you know, you had WCW and WWE are battling it out for 6s and 7s and 8s. And we're just not gonna get those anymore, because there's the TV landscape as a whole has changed. Yeah. There's a lot of people cutting the cord. There's a lot of people watching, you know, Raw and SmackDown on Hulu the next day, and watching the highlight videos on YouTube and stuff like that. You know, so it's very easy to to go right to the ratings. Oh, it's the lowest rated Raw ever. It's the lowest rated this. It's never been this low. And statistically speaking, that's an accurate statement. But then, you know, if 2 million people watch Raw, another 1.5 million people, you know, grab the video feeds on YouTube, another 750,000 grab them on Facebook. Like, there you're right there. You're getting into 4 and 5 and 6 million people that are absorbing the product every week, and it's, you know, I think it's just the nature of entertainment as a whole, and the fact that, you know, we're absorbing content, you know, so much differently now than we ever have before. And that's why even there's a lot of times your backstage promo segments on WWE programming are shot from from the perspective of a superstar holding up their phone camera, as opposed to the traditional, camera and backstage interviewer and all of that, because, you're trying to connect with people on the way that they absorb their content and their video content anymore. So it's the WWE's in flux, as is, I think, probably anybody that is a live content creator.
So needless to say then, based on what you're saying, because I was going to ask you, how do you fix their issues? Like, you think that the issues is not so much just the product, but it's just everything in general around it. Just the way we take in, entertainment, take in, in this case, wrestling. Because, I mean, the numbers I've heard in the last couple of weeks is that Raw is down 20%. And that's a pretty big drop. But again, is that because of the actual product of WWE, or is that just the result of just overall, just the way things are in terms of how we intake our entertainment?
I think it's a little of both. Because I will agree that there are some weeks where 3 hours of Raw feels like a chore, and I think that's part of the problem too. Is I think if you can get the Raw, the TV deal, and agree with USA, because I think USA is pushing that third hour, because they're still in the top 6 or 7 programs on cable every single week. Because like right now, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs are driving numbers. Once those are over, there's a lot of weeks where WWE's 3 hours are in the top 5 hours for a Monday night. But so that the product's not the best, but I think too, because I even think about myself, over the past couple months, hockey is my number one sport. The Stanley Cup playoffs, I'm all on board with them. So if there's a game I'm particularly interested in on a Monday night, like this coming Monday, for example, game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals, I'm not going to be watching Raw live. I DVR it every week, and I'm going to watch it from the DVR. So if I were a Nielsen house, I'd be a plus 1 or plus 3.
I'm the same way with the NBA. Like, NBA is my number one sport, and if the NBA is on and the Raw is on, I'm going to take the NBA first before anything else. Right? I'm the same way. Yeah.
I mean, most TV anymore, I do not watch as it's airing. It's all DVR based. It's all Hulu based. Because I don't have to structure my life based on when a show airs. I can watch it in enough time, and if it's something more popular than another, I know I have to beat it before spoilers beat it. And I know we've had that discussion before. Mm-hmm. But it's just how it is. It's sports, and typically wrestling, they get my live viewership, but sometimes life gets in the way. Sometimes other things get in the way. So I think that plays into it as well. People are not being dictated by the TV anymore. Like I remember, vividly remember, the 10th anniversary episode of Monday Night Raw. I could look back over the first 10 years of Monday Night Raw and probably count on one hand the number of times that I hadn't seen an episode of Raw live. And it's just not that way anymore, because it doesn't have to be. I wasn't gonna record Monday Night Raw on a videotape every week and watch it Tuesday when I got home from school. I was gonna watch it before I went to school the next day. Now, we're adults. We have families. We have aging parents. We have, dogs that get sick. We have all sorts of things. But I know that it's going on the DVR, so it's not a huge deal.
Right. That's a good point. That's a great point. All right, last question to go. Ronda Rousey, is she done officially WWE, or what's going on with her?
I don't know. And I think that's a great thing, because if she's done, I think her 1 year in the WWE could potentially go down as the best, one of the best years in the WWE's history, but especially for somebody new. She killed it. And I will, sing the praises of what Ronda Rousey did in such a short time. So if she never wrestles again, I will say thank you, Ronda Rousey, for what you did, because, she was part of the reason why the women main evented, at WrestleMania for the first time. If she comes back, I'm all on board for it as well, because, she elevates the division, and the fact that we don't know what her plans are, I would love for, and this is where I think it could happen, is, when SmackDown Live moves to Fox in the fall. I think she could show up on an episode of SmackDown Live on Fox and get a lot of attention on that program, because it moves to Friday nights. So I think that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for the WWE to get people to watch wrestling on a Friday night. And what better way than somebody like Ronda Rousey getting the headlines?
Right, I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna take a guess. I have no sourcing on this, obviously. I'm gonna say she's back by the fall. I'm gonna say that she'll come back. Look, there's a lot of mixed views about how her first year went in WWE, and I've heard some hated it, some loved it. I do think that maybe the heart will go fonder, and maybe she comes back, and the second time around will be the bang that she needs, to which goes over the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if anybody wants to discuss their opinions on Rousey's first year, I'm here because it was everything I thought it could be and should have been, and even more so. She kicked ass. She absolutely did.
There you go. First you go, plug your shows, plug everything you need to plug her, man.
Yeah, you can follow me, Twitter at Big Jim Sports, and 3 Count Thursday. We're at 3 Count Thursday. It's always the number 3. We air live on our Facebook page, facebook.com/3 Count Thursday every Thursday night, 9:30 Eastern time. We're interactive as we can be really the place to go for anything 3 Count related is 3countthursday.com. There we have, shirts and Patreons and everything, social media, YouTube's, all that. It's all right there. The site's pretty self-explanatory. By
the way, I apologize for pressing the wrong button on the search when I did the 3 Count on Twitter. Like, I saw the 3 Count, but I pressed the wrong button on there. There's like a couple 3s on there, and I just kind of quickly pressed it. I put the wrong one. I'm so sorry, Rod. I felt like an ass. Like, I was like, wait a second. I saw 3 Count Thursday on the search button, and like, oh my god, wrong button.
I know people always gripe that Twitter doesn't have like an edit button, but I'm actually happy it doesn't because you can go back in time and actually see if somebody said something or not. Because if you screw something up and you go back, I mean, obviously you can delete it, but if somebody can go back and edit it and then the thing you thought was there actually wasn't. Yeah, that's all good, man. Just correct it when we actually get the episode up.
Well, I'll love to talk to you again in the next couple of weeks or months and see how everything was going AEW and WWE and whatnot. Because this is definitely a fascinating time to be a wrestling fan, especially. So thanks for being on the podcast. Really appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Once again, thanks to Jim Nies coming on the podcast. Really enjoyed having him on here, giving a lot of clarity on the future of both the AEW as it launches this week and the WWE and what they will do to adjust moving forward. Really appreciate him on the podcast. Been a long time. I'll probably bring him on the pod in a few weeks, a few months, and kind of, check up on how things are going thus far. Before I go, a quick shout out to Juwan Howard. He's been Miami assistant for quite a while. He was just hired today as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, 5-year deal. I don't know the numbers on money, but it doesn't matter. I'm sure it's good enough money to get him out of Miami. I mean, you don't move to Michigan unless you and leave Miami unless you were getting paid a pretty penny. But I'm looking forward to see this works. This whole thing works out for him because obviously Juwan Howard is connected to the Fab Five from the early 90s and all that. And though they didn't win a title, it is still arguably the most storied college basketball clique, I will say, in history. I'm really hoping that this works out for him because the coach he's taking over for, I mean, did really, really well. He's now the coach of the Cavs. So shout out to Juwan Howard and his new job and at Michigan. Hoping things work out for him as he makes the change from South Beach to freezing cold ass Michigan. Anyway, that's the podcast today. Of course, I'm on Twitter at eSpace7. We'll be writing. I've been writing a lot more lately. Hopefully on the blog. Hopefully check the blog. I'm hoping. I was trying to do a Game of Thrones related piece similar to what I discussed on top of the show on the blog this week. We'll see if I get to that. But once again, on Twitter, E7, the site, the blog, earnestly.net. Until then, next podcast. Later.